Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Katrina. You know, it sounds like they just sang the prayer for protection. Oh, goodness. So today we're going to continue on. We're deeply involved now in the book Daring Greatly by Dr. Brené Brown. And she's talking to us in every chapter about the benefits of being vulnerable. Now, if we understand the definition of vulnerability, it comes from the word wound. It's the state of being open to experiencing attack. So how in the world could there be a benefit to being so open? You know, in our humanness, it's our instinct to protect ourselves, isn't it? We develop all types of defense mechanisms and coping mechanisms. Yet, the premise of Daring Greatly is spiritual in nature. What I believe she's trying to say is that we can be vulnerable and we can grow from it. We can learn that as we expand, that we're stronger. We are spirit, meaning magnanimous. We are much more than what we know that we are in our human condition. And so just thinking about that for a moment, thinking further about being vulnerable, it means that we're going to gain strength. We're going to learn. That as we evolve in consciousness, we can just let go of these defense mechanisms that we set into place and embrace our true spiritual natures. And what does that feel like? It means that we don't engage in fight or flight. We show up courageously and do our best in conversations to explain ourselves and to listen. And it may go antithetical to our survival needs, but in terms of growing, we are coming from a place of core values instead of demeaning anyone else for their journey. So exposing ourselves is what vulnerability is all about. Now, how many of you want to be exposed and attacked? All right, I've got two courageous, brave souls. They've been in unity 82 years. Thank you both. I believe it. And I'm looking at them now. They are so wholehearted people in the way they love and in the way they give. So I'm just going to say, you bless me. So let's just continue to think about ways that we can evolve. This morning we want to step into ways daring greatly as, I want to say, stepping into the minefield of being wholehearted parents and grandparents. Anyone know what I'm talking about? You know, we've come for a long way to find unity, and many of us have had these life experiences, some of which have been very beneficial, some of which have been very difficult. And so we really need to understand what it means to be wholehearted. It means to be in a place where we're learning and we're expanding and growing. We're bringing our full self together, and we can do it as parents. You know, we don't have to have it all figured out. We can have a GPS North Star and just start walking toward it and trust it. There's something inside of us that leads us there, and we can feel the benefit of it. We feel worthy of having that guidance. But you know, families that don't have that wholehearted parenting process are bereft of that North Star, are bereft of a path to go on. There's the confusion and there's chaos and there's feelings of unworthiness and being unlovable. And you know, it's very sad. when people do not know their true importance. Because what is it that we believe in unity? That each and every person is worthy. Each and every person is a Christ spirit. And so our job today is to really think about this, being wholehearted. Now I want to tell you my first experience of working with young teenage mothers happened when I was in my early 20s. One of my very first important jobs was at the Medical College of Virginia in the child development study. Teenage moms would come in and they were very disengaged from their child. And so the study was about providing role modeling and education and doctors and therapists and others that would help them along their way. But the great law to role model was reciprocity. The reason that's so important is because unless a mother or a caregiver smiles at the child doesn't know that they're loved. And if that child smiles at the mother or the caregiver and then no one smiles back, that child is at risk. It can be fatal. If that child rolls the ball and no one rolls the ball back, that child gets very discouraged, can give up, and they feel like they're not worthy of love. And so very early in life, they're set up for at-risk behaviors because they can't interpret their world in a way that they feel truly loved and understood and safe. So it's about that time when I began understanding, it's bigger than the child, it's bigger than the mother. It's really in a family system. And I'm sure there's not one of us here that doesn't understand that you've come from a system, extended family system. And there isn't one of us who's been a parent that we don't look back with some regret of what we've done or not done, what we said or not said. But who are we to judge? Ourselves or others. We're here to learn. We're here to grow. We're not here to condemn ourselves. And Jesus taught us this great lesson with the woman, the adulteress, where she had been condemned by the religious elders, and they came to stone her. And Jesus said, "Who amongst you is perfect? If so, throw the first stone." And so the religious leaders left. The same applies to us as parents. Perfect parenting just doesn't exist. And many parents live in fear and they struggle with societal expectations because if they say to themselves, if we're not seen as perfect, then we're inadequate. And those feelings are very difficult to maintain one's self-regard. And so there's a lot of cover-up in time and energy trying to manage the perceptions of others so that they are not vulnerable. Here's what you and I want to take home with us this morning, is that who we are and how we engage in the world are much stronger predictors of how our children will do than what we know about parenting. In other words, we don't have to have the latest books. We don't have to we don't have to go to therapists. We don't need to be involved in parenting classes unless we want to, or unless we want to find out get specific support. What's the strongest indicator of child success is who we are, what we know about ourselves. Because guess who's looking? Our children. So when we know who we are and we remember that we really are spirit in this human condition, we can learn to be accepting of ourselves. And if we're accepting of ourselves, then the likelihood is that we can be accepting of others. We can make wiser decisions. We don't need to blame anyone. We don't have to live in the best neighborhoods, drive the best cars. we need to first and foremost have compassion for ourselves. This means having a time in our lives to raise consciousness. Raising consciousness to me means really examining who I am, letting go old resentments and letting go old thoughts, letting go old patterns that we might say is a victim consciousness of who did what, who should have done what, who should have provided this and didn't. Holding on to the past doesn't help us. It limits us. What does help us is when we begin to understand that there is a consciousness, a presence that resides within us that helps us gently claim our worthiness. Well, now we begin to understand how precious we are. Truly precious, that we are worthy, we are important. And so we can love ourselves and others unconditionally. Now, as a young mom, years ago, I won't tell you how many, but as a young mom, I joined a church, and the women of that church were all going to the Y, and they were swimming with some children. And the children, unbeknownst to me, all were brought from Child Protective Services. And I was assigned to swim with a small child who had been placed there because her father had thrust her arm in a pot of boiling water because she was crying. So she lost half of her arm, and the swimming was all about regaining her strength. Well, what it did for me was just to touch me to the core and to try to understand, what is my role here? What am I to do with this child? And I realized very early on, very soon into the process, it was to bring a wholeheartedness of myself to join this child in swimming. It was simply to show up, to be loving, to be encouraging, to smile, eye contact, fun and games. And much healing occurred. It blessed me so much to be with this child. So much so, eventually I went into the field of social work and learned play therapies with children and understood their resiliency, their ability to understand their world to the best of their abilities, to forgive others around them, and yet face a lifetime of needing therapeutic support off and on, but yet being free to grow and develop without being left in that negative environment. The most surprising thing for me, however, were the parents. The parents did not show that resiliency. They did not show the ability to shift and change and adjust and grow easily. They really showed a resistance to healing. They couldn't be wholehearted parents. And many of these parents projected shame and blame on their children because it was just too painful to look within. So this is when I understood, there's much, much more. I was coming into unity, understandings. All true healing is spiritual in nature. So how do you and I heal? How do we be role models for others to heal? Move through blocks and just shift the consciousness so that there's a wholehearted joy in the relationship. I truly believe it's when we stop struggling and we allow ourselves to feel self-love. Just let it wash over us. Just feel that love flowing through us and the compassion for who we are and our situation, that it unblocks all that we've held back. It unblocks the dam. We can be bathed in that compassion, and we then can receive and give love wholeheartedly. Now, our co-founder, Myrtle Fillmore, wrote many, many books to parents letters to parents, and they were compiled in a book called Healing Letters. And not only did she heal her tuberculosis, the physical illness she had, but she just continued on with emotional and mental support for many of us. These letters are still there for us to read, but I will tell you her pattern was this. Parents, start with yourself. Love yourself. Feel the joy. Be grateful for the day. Laugh, sing, dance. Show compassion for your, quote, equally growing souls, as Myrtle said. Know you're imperfect. Know your child is imperfect. And then go about establishing structure, establishing routine, letting your child struggle, having faith in them, versus making it always so fast and fun and easy for them. You know, Myrtle's position was not an easy one, but I think she understood that before you can be a wholehearted parent, you've got to be a wholehearted person. We need to show up in the allness of who we are. We can silence our inner critic. We can say that our past never defines our future. We can accept our failures, and we can understand that our journey will go on because there is an indwelling guidance system that's always there that we call God, the Christ light, our divine nature. And once we believe in ourselves, we're home. And your child benefits once we believe in ourselves. So we don't need to worry as much about discipline and shifting and changing the child as it is really understanding our worthiness without shame and blame. And if we want to teach, then through guilt, we can do that. And the child will interpret what we're saying as, I've done something bad. But if we want to teach them through shame, the child will say, I am bad. Shame-based communication sets the child up for many, many negative behaviors in the future. We want to really limit the amount of negative energy we give around being shame-based. We want to be wholehearted parents, dig deep and provide inspiration. First of all, deliberate inspiration to get going. Dig. And know that when our children are hurting and they're powerless and they cannot articulate what's happening to them, and their behaviors come out either as angry or depressed and sad, we know they're just communicating their pain to us. What we can do about it is know, again, who we are and come from our core values. This groundedness and centeredness in families helps us so much to really move through many rough times. We're going to watch a YouTube now of Dr. Brene Brown being interviewed by Oprah Winfrey. And this YouTube is one where, of course, Oprah gets so excited as she does with all of her interviews. But it's one where she recognizes the importance of being wholehearted in everything we do as a parent. In your bulletin, there is this manifesto for you to take home, to post. But let's hear Brene Brown read it to us.
I think is one of the moving here, and I want everybody to know that we're going to have it on Oprah.com, is the Wholehearted Parenting Manifesto. I mean, because what's so great about all of this information, it's great to be able to use for yourself, but I just think how wonderful to be able to raise your kids this way. So can you read the Parenting Manifesto?
I can.
Yes.
I don't know if I can read it without crying because I'm away from my kids. But okay.
And this is every home has to have its own manifesto.
Yeah.
If you don't, then your home is operating under, confusion and chaos and whatever. And maybe you have a manifesto that hasn't been spoken, but I love this for people to sort of incorporate as their own and adjust as they will. But
above all else, I want you to know that you are loved and lovable.
You're saying this to your children?
Yes.
Okay.
You will learn this from my words and my actions. The lessons on love are in how I treat you and how I treat myself. I want you to engage with the world from a place of worthiness. You will learn that you are worthy of love, belonging, and joy every time you see me practice self-compassion and embrace my own imperfections.
Yes.
We will practice courage in our family by showing up, letting ourselves be seen, and honoring vulnerability. We'll share our stories of struggle and strength. There will always be room in our home for both. We will teach you compassion by practicing compassion with ourselves first, then with each other. I want you to know joy, so together we'll practice gratitude. I want you to feel joy, so together we'll learn how to be vulnerable. Together we'll cry and face fear and grief. I will want to take away your pain, but instead I will sit with you and teach you how to feel it.
Oh, I'm going to cry right now. We all want a mother like that. And a dad. Steve, hello.
We will laugh and sing and dance and create. We will always have permission to be ourselves with each other. No matter what, you will always belong here. Okay. As you begin your wholehearted journey, the greatest gift that I can give to you is to live in love with my whole heart and to dare greatly. I will not teach or love or show you anything perfectly, but I will let you see me, and I will always hold sacred the gift of seeing you, truly, deeply seeing you.
I wish for every parent in the world to go to Oprah.com, get that book, put that on their wherever in your house, in your kitchen. I just wish everybody could live by those words, really.
Me too.
That's how you change the world.
I believe it.
Do we believe it? Can we really live from this place of being vulnerable and being so open without shame and blame? Because if we do, we can heal ourselves back into our wholeness. It's when we remember that we can always turn back to God, because where is God? In the universe and dwelling within us. And it's a reminder for me as I go into read Jeremiah from time to time of that new covenant, that new promise, that reassurance of the bond between us as individuals and God. And I will give them a heart to know that I am the Lord, and they shall be my people. And I will be their God, for they shall return to me with their whole hearts. You know, if we don't go for a while to church, or we don't remember to pray, and we get disconnected from our spiritual lives, we need to remember to turn back, to get that connection to God, and get that connection with our whole heart, because that's what happens when we heal. And I wondered, you know, as I've looked in preparing for this message about my life's journey and how ideal it has been, how wonderful and actually perfect for me that I had these experiences with children and with families and in my own life, so that I could be open and grow as to this point. And there's more for me to do. As imperfect as we may be, we remember first who we are, and we can put God first. We can bounce back after any situation. We can love with our whole hearts, and we can be some of the happiest and the worthiest people on the face of this earth. We can feel it, we can know it, we can shine it, we can be the light, and we can see the light in each other, especially our children. So as we leave today, let's celebrate our courage to be wholehearted with our whole hearts. Amen.